Right then, welcome back to the channel. Yeah, we lost, and we might have absolutely torpedoed our chances for getting into the top four as well. To be honest with you, it was a bit of a catastrophe, and not only that, we are now cruising towards like our worst season since 1973-74. Wicked, 50 years ago. Let's get into it then. Right, number one, Forsen Experiment. That it didn't work. I thought he looked nervous, to be honest with you. I'm sure he's of the level required to be given an opportunity. I'm sure he's doing the things in training. He's had a couple of little minutes here and there off the bench, and you go, yeah, it looks okay. Is the pressure of starting a game different? Was it political? Was it contractual? Because, or is he going to get another go? No. What's weird is youngsters seem to get held back so much that when they inevitably get that debut, they tend to perform, regardless of whether or not they're capable of doing something. Dylan Levitt's debut, over 100 passes from central midfield. Angel Gomez just took the ball and owned it on the edge of the opposition box. Josh Harrop scores a couple. James Wilson scores. Marcus Rashford scores a couple. Like, Timothy Fosu-Mensah just looks like the reincarnation of Brian Robson. Just like young Makeda. If the internet and Twitter and things that have been around at those times, people will still be pulling out things every United fan said about Kiko Makeda coming through. And you can go on and on and on and on, all the way down, to when Welbeck was making his debut and stuff like that. Like, youngsters, when they make their debut, I think that debut, more often than not, is seen as a very exciting, very positive thing. Even Donald Love, right? Regardless of whether they're going to go on and be world-class or League Two, generally that debut goes really, really well. I can't actually really remember a youngster having a debut that was as ordinary to poor as Forsen had. We were really hoping he had something. We were really hoping the manager was going to pull something out of there. He didn't start up front like he was rumoured to. We totally reconfigured the forward three to put him in on the right. If you was going to put him on the right, why wouldn't you just put Ahmad in? Do you know what I mean? Someone that we know can play off the right. Someone that we know has got a lot more championship experience. Like, in terms of match sharpness and readiness, they've both got to be at a similar level, surely, right? It didn't pay off. And that's not to say that he's going to go on and do nothing in his career, or that he's going to go on and be world class. There is no pattern for what happens next with him. He is going to have to put in a better performance by a significant metric if he's going to have a successful career. But ultimately, yeah, he disappointed, and I don't think he'll be getting another call up for a while, at least. Maybe he'll get some minutes off the bench, but I wouldn't expect to see him starting again for a while following that. Number two, transitional woes. So we do sound like a broken record. Transition has basically been the buzzword of this season, hasn't it? Before the match, only West Ham and Sheffield United had conceded more shots than us in the league. And then we conceded another 17. Which sounds like a lot. It's actually the exact average of how many goals, how many shots on goal that we've conceded in every single game. Now, I think Liverpool might have had 30 against us, but that's our average. 17, it's far too many. It's far too many. I'm going to do a video later in the week where I actually look at how many shots we concede throughout the years. And have a look maybe when we were successful and then how we've been post-Fergie. And just to illustrate that, I don't think we've ever conceded that amount of shots. I'm going out there before seeing the data saying I think that's the most average we've ever conceded in terms of shots. And it all kind of feeds in. It's because we don't defend well. Well, is that on the defenders? Yeah. but it's also on every other single person on the pitch in a United shirt, because the defenders are the last part of defending. But defending starts from your forwards. Defending is part of the midfield, and then defending 1v1 as it enters the box for the final actions of a shot generally does come down to the defenders. But it all starts with the entire shape and the structure of the team. Now, those of you who've known, one of the things that I talk about the most is being +1. And with my own lads, we will concede shots if we're not +1. When you're +1, I can't believe I'm having to explain this, but I feel like I have to. So +1 is a very, 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 very basic, simple concept. This isn't, people will call it rest defense and this, that, and the other, but ultimately, if they've got 2 forwards, we need 3 covering them, defending, yeah? Behind the ball, behind the man with the ball. So when you were seeing Fulham break yesterday with 4 players, Manchester United, to maintain defensive structure, should have had 5 behind the ball. Do you know how many we had? 2. You're going to concede a lot of shots with that. That is a hell of a ballsy call. Now, at our very, very best, and when we were chasing a game, Sir Alex Ferguson would ask United to play 1v1. 1v1. Not 1v2, which is what we saw. 1v1. But he was asking Yapstam, Vidic, Rio, Evra to play 1v1. Good defenders that we know, like at the top of their game. Can you deal with him 1v1? Yeah. And we're doing that because we're either chasing a game or trying to win a match. Typically, though, Fergie's teams would be +1. Now, Gary Neville and Roy Keane spoke about this the other day. You know, if the terminology has evolved as more European influence happens in the English game, you know, you're seeing people start, as there's more tacticos get involved and more analysts get involved, more sort of technical terms are coming out. But the jobs and the roles that they're doing are the same. So, where you now see a fullback invert, well, I used to see Paul Parker and Gary Neville pick up the ball in those areas. Roy Keane had a fair few games at fullback, and he would invert and pick up the ball in those areas and then drive it through the middle, overloading the centre of the park. But it wasn't called that. It didn't really have any sort of name, and no one on Match of the Day ever pointed that out. And obviously, analysis shows were not a thing, so no one ever really spoke about it. And when they were talking on the Stick to Football podcast, where they were talking about if one fullback goes, the other stays, that's just being +1 at the back. Typically, they would have been playing against 2 forwards. So if one fullback is getting involved in midfield and overlapping, well, the other one sits in, and then you've got 3 marking your 2 forwards. Now, as football evolved and started moving towards 4-3-3, that might mean that 3 are left against what would be 3 at the back. That's where you would maybe have your Roy Keane or Nicky Butt kind of split the difference, and now you're 4 versus 3, maintaining +1. It's such a basic principle. It's so frustrating that we don't see this Manchester United team adhere to it even more. And for me, it's one of the major reasons why we're so poor. But it's not the only reason. Yes, United were getting broke on and overloaded. And sometimes that's desire and effort. Sometimes that's team structure. Sometimes, you know, as you saw with Maguire, he's gone in on the halfway line when he was 2v1 and he's dived in. Your primary function as a defender is what, right? It's delay. The first D of defending is delay. And this is where Van Dijk has been excellent at this. That whole Van Dijk, you know exactly what it is. I'm not going to mimic it for you, but that whole Van Dijk sort of jogging alongside a forward that he does, not engaging. If you don't engage, you don't get beat. You know, it's maybe not what the passion merchants want to see, because they'd rather see someone go and muller someone. But you know what? Premier League footballers are so quick on their toes, so agile, so quick thinking. They will knock the ball past you, meg you, go round you, whatever, and leave you in the dust. And then your team is without you. And that's exactly what happened to Maguire yesterday. He got done, and then he's never going to get back in position. So you're overloaded. If he'd have gone up to him, got his arm out, got in the right stance, turned his hips ready to run backwards, and delayed them, that can bring the midfield into it, and then you can recover you and be +1 again. It's basics of defending that's not happening. And that's on the players, and it's also on the coaching staff as well. You know, we've had a lot of injuries, but the structural issues are not good. And it almost feels like we're within two sort of ways of playing at the moment without a clear way of doing either to a high degree of quality. And that worries me. Number 3, Ahmad cameo. We've seen what he can bring. He's very tidy, very clever in possession. I thought he helped us look a little bit more balanced when he came on. He's shown a hell of a lot more than Forsen. Horrible game to be thrown into by Ten Hag with the mood and everything that was going on because of the game. When you've been on ice for so long, it must have been hard to get in the mixer, but I thought he's shown enough to maybe see him play again. Maybe not on the right, you maybe try him centrally, maybe you do try him on the right, but I think he deserved the opportunity to be seen again. And, you know, if you're persisting with Garnacho on the right, Rashford on the left, put Ahmad in the mix, he comes in and people will interpret this wrong, but he reminds me of Sancho in a way, that he's not the sort that's going to stand you up, go past you, like Garnacho, like Rashford do. He plays to a different beat, and he comes in between the lines, and he looks to link things, and United really don't have someone that does that at the moment. So I could consider playing him as a false 9 and see what joy you get for it. Which leads into the next point, which is the attack was a bit meh. You know, with Rashford up top, it didn't work. You know, he's still having the same sort of service problems that Højlund's having, but his body language is not great. And I'm a big believer in the body language does matter, to be honest with you. Not only body language, but the verbal language that you use as well. And we can't hear the verbal language, but the body language isn't great. Garnacho, I thought, was probably our major threat, but at times he did feel like he was desperate, and that's not a good mental state for a forward to be in, any of them. Forsen offered nothing. We completely mixed up. If you're going to bring anybody in, bring someone in and change as little as possible about what's been working or kind of working. You know, Rashford and Garnacho has been kind of working. I wouldn't say it's like, oh my God, it's like a throwback to York and Cole, or, you know, or a forward three of like Tevez, Rooney, Ronaldo, because it isn't, right? But it was kind of working. Then you move Garnacho back over to the left, you put Rashford at the front, and you play Forsen off the right, and you go, I mean, okay, no, it didn't work. We're far too reliant on moments. We don't have the ability. Like I put a tweet out in the game. Why do we look so panicked in possession? Like, we get the ball, and it's like I do a drill at training where you have 10 seconds to score, right? I don't always give them 10 seconds. If I'm liking what I'm seeing, they might get 13. Yeah. If I'm not liking what I'm seeing, they're getting 8. Because the whole mentality of what we're trying to do is try to move the ball the right way into the right areas. So it's playing with urgency and trying to make something happen. And if I'm liking what I'm seeing, I'm going to let it conclude. If I'm not liking what I'm seeing, I'll just fucking blow the whistle. But what it does is it gets people into the mindset of trying to move things forward in the system that they're trying to do. And when I look at United at the moment, it's like they're playing with a stopwatch of 5 seconds to get a shot off. It doesn't matter how we get the ball forward. Like, we would win possession, and rather than, an experienced head go, give me the ball, let's just have 4 or 5 passes. Let's, because when we did eventually force them over their halfway line and sink them into the low block that they sat into for the last 10 minutes, we looked really good. We looked in control. It's like, there's probably 9 or 10 different game states. Like, winning possession on the edge of your box is a game state. When you've been under the cosh and you've got 8 players behind the ball. Winning possession in the middle third after only having it for 5 seconds is a game state. Having sustained attacks in the opposition half, corner after corner after corner after corner, and 75% possession for the last 5 minutes is a game state. And it's like, I think we actually do know how to play in the opposition third, but we can't get to the opposition third. Like, playing out is a game state. Like, there's loads of different states of play where, I feel like we might have practiced one quite well, but there's 4 or 5 or 6 others where you go, we're not actually that good in this area here. Like, can we calm it down and move the ball forward? Can we get onto someone who's going to reliably move the ball up the pitch? Can we connect some players together? It's frustrating as fuck. I'm going to be honest with you. And then finally, I think that game puts the pressure on Ten Hag. I think if he gets in the top 4, I don't think there's any dramas. And I think despite how this season has gone, you go, okay, let's build from here. Jim Ratcliffe's obviously spoken about his desire to improve the environment and almost answer 0 questions about any coach or any individual. I think he's trying to hide it. But the fact of the matter is, every single owner, and I know he's only a 27.7% owner, but every single owner wants their man. And more dangerous than international breaks for coaches is a new owner. The bullet rate for new owners is it's Roman Abramovich levels. So I fear for him. And people are going, well, he's been shit. Look, I think he's made mistakes, right? I also think he's had some successes with the football club, considering the state of everything that's in. And considering some of the players that are missing, I think it's valid, but also think it's valid to say that I don't think the structure is quite right in the way that we're playing at the moment. Some of that's not on him, some of that is on him. What worries me is when I look at the list, which does include Gareth Southgate, by the way. When I look at the list of like who the next 10 favourites are to be the next United manager, I don't know if there's anybody on that list that excites me. Where I go, oh yeah, actually, like, we've seen what Ten Hag can do at Ajax. We have seen the beginnings of what he can do at Manchester United. You got to remember, I think Arsenal are playing. Say it quietly because I don't want Joel to hear. I think Arsenal are playing some impressive football at the moment. Their attack is really good and their defence is really good, and that's a recipe for success. But this fucking action man looking motherfucker was allowed to finish 8th, and 5th with no pressure on him whatsoever. If Ten Hag finishes fucking 3rd and 5th, he's still got a higher average finish, even if fucking Arsenal win the league this year. You've got to allow the guy some time to build what's his. 8th, and 5th. Are you kidding me? You don't get a chance to do that at United. You go 3rd to 5th and people are getting the knives out. Jurgen Klopp finished, was it 8th and 5th himself, or 8th, 5th, 5th? So, either way, Ten Hag's finishes are still higher than both of those. You've got to be allowed to build, especially with the new structure coming in, which I do believe will be a success. You've got to give the guy time. You've got to. Especially when I think, the centre-half position is such an important position, and not having Martinez is a massive issue. And even Varane doesn't look like Varane at the moment. And you've lost Luke Shaw, and you're playing fucking Lindelof left back. Do you expect us to be able to play out effectively? All right. Casemiro is in full fucking Power League mode at the moment. He's just paying his fiver and having a good fucking time. He's not really thinking about anything. In fact, if you go back and watch some of those transitions, we play 4-2-3-1, not 4-1-1-1. Do you know what I mean? Like, Casemiro just wasn't fucking getting into the right spots to be able to impact what he does as a defensive midfielder. I think he's just fucking checked out mentally. There's no other word for it. He is fucking around. Anyway, that was a long 5 things. Do me a favour, go and check out the latest Howson IRL video. I will leave a link to it in the comments. Loads of you went and checked it out last night. I do thank you for that very much. But, we're trying to do something on there that takes us out of this shit. You know what I mean? So go and get into the great outdoors. We've got the car video coming out soon, so we'll reveal which of the cars that we bought from the free cars. There's some content on there and that already. We're going to be doing camping stuff. And somebody mentioned yesterday something that we actually have been talking about. Now, I don't know when we're going to do this. Probably not this summer because of the Euros. But we might do like a big subscriber meet up and camp out. And maybe I'll get some guest speakers in and things like that. But make it a real fucking wicked outdoor kind of weekend. Might do it just for Patreon. I might open it up to subscribers. Maybe we, offer the tickets to Patreon first, and if there's some left over, send it to the subscribers. I don't know. I've not fully thought everything through yet. I'm trying to get my mountain leader qualification. I'm on with logging, all of that lot. I'm going to be out in the mountains a hell of a lot between now and end of the year when I'm on my assessment. So there's going to be a shitload of content coming out. I'm going to Penny Fan to do the SAS selection fan dance very soon. That's not what I'm doing with the rejoining the army, if anyone gets fucking excited. I'm just going doing it to see how far off the time, because I'm definitely off the time, aren't I? How far off the time I am, and then maybe I can work towards getting up to a standard where I could pass it. But I'm doing that. I'm going to go check out Crib Gok. I'm doing the National Free Peaks, doing the Yorkshire Free Peaks. I've booked on an Ultra in September. All of this is content that's coming out, as well as some camping stuff. Me and the wife are trying to get on a campfire cooking course, where you get to learn how to do steaks in a skillet on a campfire, as well as like on rocks and stuff like that. Don't let United get you down. There's all sorts of other shit going on. But go check out the Howson IRL channel. Like I said, link for that will be in the description. Or if you want to support the channel, there's all sorts of extra content. We had a vlog go out last week. Thursday Club with me and Ben. All that is on there. So go check it out. I'll see you in the next one. Laters.